My first encounter with Edgar Allan Poe was a school assignment when I was maybe 12 or 13 years old. I was given the short story, The Fall of the House of Usher, to read. I loved it and wrote a rather lengthy essay, which got a nice grade from the teacher, and I was so much enthralled with the story, I asked my parents for the complete works of Poe for Christmas. Poe was clearly a brilliant and possibly somewhat disturbed man who probed the farthest reaches of the mind. I had been making a series of low-budget films for two companies, Allied Artists and American International. Each one would be black and white, shot on a 10-day schedule with a budget of $70,000 or $80,000. They would send out the pictures as a double bill, two pictures for the price of one. It was time to move on. And I said, what I'd like to do is take double the budget and shoot a film in color and have 15 days instead of 10. Jim Nicholson, who was the head of AIP, agreed immediately. Sam Markoff, who was his partner but more involved with business, but still a little bit in the creative, said, but Roger, there's a problem. There's no monster in The Fall of the House of Usher. Thinking fairly quickly, I said, Sam, the house is the monster. And on that basis, they said, yes, I could make The Fall of the House of Usher.
What is the meaning of this?
This is Mr. Winthrop, sir.
How dare you admit anyone into this house?
My first choice for Roderick Usher was Vincent Price. Roderick Usher was a highly intelligent, educated, sensitive, and slightly out of his mind character. And without going too deeply into the out of the mind aspect of it, I felt Vincent embodied all of those characteristics. You might say our work together was a shared passion. I was passionate about Poe, and Vincent was passionate about acting, and he found a genre, a type of character that he could play very well. He was no longer the young leading man. He was an older man, and these parts fitted Vincent's persona perfectly. The first of the Poe films, The Fall of the House of Usher, was easy to adapt. The story was straightforward. The second picture I did, The Pit and the Pendulum, however, was very difficult to adapt. The story itself was only something like 2 or 3 pages, and it depicted the hero beneath the pendulum and above the pit. The whole story was just that moment. Dick Matheson, the writer, and I realized that what we really had was one sequence of a picture. And the only way really to make a full motion picture out of it was to treat Poe's story as the third act, if you will, of a 3-act structure. And our job was to create the first 2 acts in the style of Poe as much as we could, leading to his short story as the 3rd act. I had very specific theories about how to shoot the works of Poe. First, I felt that if I was dealing with the unconscious mind receives information from the eyes, the ears, and so forth, but is not really aware of the exterior world. So I felt I should shoot everything inside a soundstage. I should never go to the exterior because the unconscious mind doesn't know the exterior, and on the soundstage, I could create what I wanted. My decision to make the last of the 2 Poe films, The Masque of the Red Death and The Tomb of Ligeia, in England was not an aesthetic choice. It was a practical choice. The films had been exceptionally successful in the UK, and the UK at that time had something called the Eadie Plan, which was a subsidy for English films, and Anglo Amalgamated, the English distributors, who who had handled the Poe films, suggested that I make the next two films in England, take advantage of the English subsidy, and I could make slightly bigger films for the same price. Working in the UK was a different and very good experience. It started even before we began shooting. Danny Haller, the art director, and I were very good friends, and what we would generally do was find flats from the scene dock. The scene dock is an area in a studio where flats from sets of previous pictures are stored. And we went to, I've forgotten the name of the English studio, either A Man for All Seasons or Beckett, I've forgotten which one, had been shot at that studio. We went to the scene dock, and it's as if we were in heaven. We found the best flats we had ever seen. Danny did a brilliant job of taking these individual flats, recomposing them, repainting them, and gave me the biggest look I've ever had in a Poe film with The Masque of the Red Death. The English crews were just as good as the Hollywood crews. Nick Rogue was my cameraman, who went on to be a director himself, and he was an excellent cameraman. If I had any criticism, it would be that they worked a little bit slower than the American crews, but the difference was not much. The other thing which startled me was we'd start shooting, we'd just be getting organized, and it was time for 11s. We would stop at 11 o'clock and have something to eat. Then we would work a while, go to lunch, work a while, and then we'd be stopping for tea. And I never really was in total sync with that concept. I had never planned to make a series of Poe films. I just wanted to make The Fall of the House of Usher. It was the most successful commercially picture that American International or I had ever made, and got among the best reviews, so it was logical that we do a sequel. We kept on going through, I think, 6 or 7 Poe films. Dick Matheson and I tried different ways of working with them to make them different. On The Raven, for instance, we introduced humor.
You didn't run? I mean, fly away?
Is that what you thought?
What else was I supposed to think?
All right, never mind. You always did think like your mother.
On the last of the Poe films, The Tomb of Ligeia, Bob Towne, who went on to become an Academy Award-winning screenwriter, decided with me that we would make it partially a love story. So I was trying to vary them as much as I could. And I finally felt 2 things. I was beginning to repeat myself. I couldn't think of any new ways to treat them. And also, I wanted to move on. My theory of shooting always in the studio, I was tired of my own theory. As a matter of fact, on Tomb of Ligeia, I went out deliberately into the English countryside in broad daylight to throw away my own theory. And AIP wanted me to make more, and I just said, no, that's enough. That's the end of this period. I now want to step away from studio work, go out in the streets, and shoot contemporary society.